You defended the Constitution, the lives, the security, and the freedom of our citizens. You saved our homeland from being shaken up. In actual fact, you stopped a civil war. You proved your faithfulness for the Russian motherland and for the military. You showed your responsibility for the motherland. Now, Defense, Rosgvardia, the Interior Ministry showed your important work, strategic, including defense sites, security of border regions, of our armed forces, and all fighting units who've continued in this time to work on the front in a heroic way, because we could not remove the military subdivisions. In resisting against those people who were trying to cause an uprising, in carrying out your military duty. And now we shall have a minute's silence in their memory. Dear comrades, your decisiveness and your courage, as well as your consolidation, unity of the whole of Russian society, has played a huge role in stability of those people who try to bring us into an uprising. Those subdivisions of all the armed forces were able to stop an extremely dangerous circumstances of the development of the country. There was no victim amongst the civilians. I'm grateful to you and to the armed forces, the forces of security, the special services, the services, for your goodness, for your faithfulness for the people of Russia. I wish you success. Thank you.
President Putin there speaking in Moscow, a very formal event, a real sense of history he's adding to the moment, really crediting his security forces for preventing what he called a civil war, what could have been a civil war. There was a minute's silence. Nick Robertson's with me. I mean, the staging of that moment was quite interesting, wasn't it?
Theatre And the lie that it beget is also quite incredible, is it not? Because we know that Prigozhin's forces were able to get within 125 miles of Moscow, and all this military that Putin is crediting with saving the country from civil war, barely were they seen on that route.
The road was clear, wasn't it?
The road was clear. They certainly didn't, and this was a point that Prigozhin made. This is an issue you guys have, that my force can drive all the way to Moscow so quickly. Yes, very typical of the Kremlin, very critical, very typical of Putin to come out and try to change what's actually happened, set a new narrative, say, you know, put the pride in the fatherland, put the pride, rather in the motherland, put the pride of the nation in these soldiers, give them a reason to sort of think of themselves as being great.
And he's pitched himself as a war leader.
Exactly, and ignore the facts. And then there was that minute of silence, and I wasn't clear. It seemed to be this was a minute of silence for those lost in action against Prigozhin's forces. But who are they? The Kremlin hasn't put a number.
Aircraft, presumably.
The aircraft. We've seen evidence of one plane shot down. We've heard speak of helicopters being shot down, but we haven't seen evidence of that. We believe 10 people were killed on that aircraft, an Ilyushin an Antonov 22 that was shot. No, Ilyushin 22, I correct myself again, that was shot down by Prigozhin's forces. And he admitted that they were shot at and they fired back, and he'd said that he was sorry for the casualties. But again, there's no detail here. We don't know from the Kremlin how many people were killed on that. Now there's a minute of silence, and it's given this grand performance, but without names. It is very much Putin trying to sort of set the narrative that we're a great country. No civilians were killed. He said everyone was safe. This is very important for him to state, because part of the unwritten contract with the leader of Russia, with Putin, between the people, is that you will have our support. We'll ignore the fact that you lie to us all the time. We know you do, as long as the country is stable and secure. And that is reaffirming the stability and security of the country, is trying to firm up that compact.
And he contradicts, doesn't he, Prigozhin, who says he wasn't trying to topple the government and he wasn't going to war. He was just trying to prove a point that he wanted to keep his units together effectively because the military threatened to disband them.
And he sounds, and let's go back and check with the translation again afterwards, this is sort of done in the moment, but the use of the language civil war has escalated what this was all about. He has made it bigger now than a rebellion before. He was talking about a civil war opening up. Did he really believe that? I mean, Putin's narrative here is that he didn't try to capture or kill Prigozhin when he had him cornered on Saturday, merely left him to escape the country, ostensibly going to neighbouring Belarus, where he's going to be in exile. We understand that was the deal. But he let him get away. And that speaks to a fear and concern about what would happen if he went after Prigozhin. What would the Wagner mercenary fighters do? What would others in the military do? Until now, and even now, the reality of the message behind what Putin is saying is he is in a weak position. It's not quite clear why he feels so enfeebled. But let's look at the way back in 2002, for example, where there was a hostage situation at a theater in Moscow. There were about 40 Chechen rebels who had taken control of a theater. There were hundreds of people in there. Putin authorized his security services to pump it full of a toxic agent so that they could disable the hostage takers. In that process, 130 hostages died and were killed as a result of this chemical gas. That was Putin 20 years ago, when he wasn't afraid of the collateral damage of what could happen. It is clear here he is afraid of the collateral damage of going after, physically, Prigozhin and capturing or killing him on Saturday, and is still afraid of how much support there is writ large in the country, is trying to firm up and shore up the security services here, who didn't stand in the way of Prigozhin's forces, who didn't come out in the way that Putin is now trying to say that they did. They will know that. They will understand that. The people of Russia will understand it. Is it going to change anything in this moment? I sort of doubt it.
Won't Russians be confused, though? If he's setting up as a potential civil war, that makes Prigozhin an enemy. And as you say, he let him go, and he isn't being punished in any way apart from he's being sent to exile, but it's not going to be a particularly difficult one from what we can tell. Or are we underestimating him, that the punishment will come later?
I think one should never underestimate Putin, and his enemies have underestimated him in the past. And this is something we keep hearing from the Ukrainians and actually from the NATO Secretary General yesterday. Don't underestimate Russia even in this moment. I am sure that Prigozhin realizes that his life is in danger, that he can't trust what comes from the Kremlin. He is believed and understood, despite what he says, to have crossed Putin personally. He has had a strong connection with Putin in the past. He's developed a lucrative business interest in Africa that benefits Putin, and he's developed essentially relations with small third world states to benefit in Africa to benefit Russia. So he's had this sort of close relationship with Putin, and we don't understand the nature of it. And has he got a pass from Putin because they still have mutual interests?
Doesn't he? That's the speculation around this.
Yes, compromat would be the word, but I think it's deeper than that in this moment.